The sound of breaking glass echoed in Elliot's ears just seconds before he realized it was his own reflection he was destroying. The mirror cracked into jagged lines across his pale face, splitting the image of someone he didn't even recognize anymore. Maybe that was the cruelest part of being reborn, looking into a stranger's eyes every time he faced himself. America was supposed to be a land of second chances, wasn't it? He laughed bitterly at that thought, because in this new world he wasn't just a boy. He wasn't free. He was an Omega, a designation stamped on his existence like a brand. Fragile, obedient, made to belong to an alpha. And as if fate enjoyed cruel jokes, his soul had been shackled to one alpha in particular, the kind of man who could break him with a glance. Damian Cole. The name carried weight in their small town outside of Chicago. He was the type of alpha parents warn their kids about. Too confident, too strong, too dangerous. But when Damian's gaze had locked on Elliot for the first time, when the bond tugged invisible and merciless, Elliot knew he didn't have a choice. His chest had burned, his pulse had roared, and every cell in his body whispered the same truth. He was Damian's, whether he wanted it or not. The problem was, Elliot had no intention of surrendering. It started on a rainy night, the kind where headlights blurred into streaks of gold on slick asphalt. Elliot had been running, the hood of his sweatshirt pulled over his head, shoes slapping against wet pavement. The scent was the first betrayal, his own body giving him away, sweet and intoxicating in the cold air. It didn't matter how many times he cursed this world, cursed this biology. His body sang like a siren every time an alpha drew near, and Damian was near. Running away from me, Omega? The voice had cut through the storm, deep and steady, like thunder rolling across the earth. Elliot froze, his breath clouded in front of him, chest heaving as he turned. Damian stood under the flickering light of a street lamp, rain plastering his black hair against his forehead, leather jacket dripping. His green eyes glowed almost unnaturally in the dark, fixed entirely on him. "I'm not yours," Elliot spat, though the words trembled in the air, unconvincing even to himself. A slow, dangerous smile curved Damian's lips. He took one step forward, boots splashing in a shallow puddle. That's the funny thing about fate. It doesn't ask. Elliot's heart hammered so loudly it drowned out the rain. He should run. He should scream. But he stood frozen as Damian closed the distance, as if gravity itself had betrayed him. And when Damian's hand finally brushed against his wrist, warm, firm, sparking fire through every nerve, Elliot knew the truth. His fight wasn't against Damian. It was against himself. Days blurred into weeks, and Elliot hated how much of his world Damian invaded. He was everywhere. At the diner where Elliot worked evenings to pay rent. In the hallways of the community college where Elliot tried to bury himself in books. Sometimes even outside his apartment building, leaning casually against his car, waiting, always watching. And yet Elliot couldn't deny the slivers of humanity he glimpsed in Damian. The way he ordered the same black coffee but always tipped more than necessary, as if money could disguise concern. The way he stood outside in the cold for hours just to make sure Elliot got home safe, never admitting it, never asking for thanks. The way his touch, though possessive, never crossed into cruelty. It was maddening, because Elliot had sworn, in his first life and in this one, never to need anyone. And now here was this alpha, this man digging under his skin, pulling out every vulnerability Elliot had tried to bury. "You look at me like I'm the enemy?" Damian said one night, his voice low as they stood in the dim light of Elliot's kitchen. Elliot's tiny apartment smelled faintly of burnt toast and cheap detergent, a far cry from the luxury Damian was used to. But Damian looked at him like this was exactly where he wanted to be. "You are," Elliot replied sharply, though his hands shook as he reached for a glass of water. "You're everything I swore I'd never let control me." Damian stepped closer, crowding the small space between them, but not touching. His presence was overwhelming, his scent wrapping around Elliot like smoke and fire. "I don't want to control you," he murmured. "I want to protect you." Elliot laughed bitterly, but it came out broken. "Protect me? From what?" "From yourself." Something flickered in Damian's eyes then, something raw and unguarded. For the first time, Elliot saw not the untouchable alpha, but a man carrying weight he didn't show the world. Maybe, Damien admitted, and just like that, Elliot's carefully built walls cracked a little more. The nights grew colder, the wind sharper with the promise of winter. Yet inside Elliot's chest, something warmer stirred a dangerous spark he didn't dare name. Because every time Damien's hand brushed his shoulder, every time their gazes collided across a crowded room, every time Damien's voice dropped low and soft like velvet, Elliot felt the pull. He was terrified, not of Damien, but of what he was becoming around him. Because maybe, just maybe, this bond wasn't a curse. Maybe it was a chance. But fate was never so kind. The hospital room smelled faintly of antiseptic and quiet grief. Machines beeped in a steady rhythm, reminding Elliot that his body was fragile, breakable in a way that always made him feel like glass. His hands lay limp on the sheets, pale against the whiteness of the linen. He could hear footsteps outside, muted voices, the muffled world that kept moving forward no matter how still he was inside. And then the door creaked open. Damien, even after everything, after the arguments, the nights of running and chasing, the accusations and the silent pleas, Damien still walked in like he belonged here. His green eyes, usually sharp and untouchable, softened when they landed on Elliot. The alpha carried exhaustion in his shoulders, but something more in his chest, a devotion Elliot had tried so hard not to see. "You should leave," Elliot whispered, voice raw, though part of him prayed Damien would ignore him. "I can't." Damien crossed the room, his boots loud against the sterile tiles, his figure a shadow of warmth in this place of cold. He sat beside the bed, leaned forward, and rested his large hand gently over Elliot's. His warmth seeped into Elliot's skin, a dangerous comfort. "Why?" Elliot forced the word out, blinking back tears he didn't want Damien to see. "Why won't you just let me go? Haven't I made it clear enough? I'm weak. I'm broken. I can't be what you need me to be." Damien's grip tightened, not crushing, but grounding. "And haven't I made it clear enough? I don't want perfect. I don't want strong. I want you, Elliot. Just you. Even if you break, even if you run, even if you hate me sometimes. You're mine. And not because fate says so, because I choose you." The silence that followed was heavy, but not suffocating. Elliot's chest ached, but this time not from pain, from something dangerously close to hope. The following weeks blurred with quiet battles, Elliot learning to trust the bond instead of fearing it, Damien learning to soften his instincts, to let Elliot breathe. It wasn't easy. There were nights Elliot woke screaming from memories of his first life, trembling and gasping until Damien's steady arms pulled him back into the present. There were days Damien clenched his fists so tightly his knuckles bled, fighting the primal need to cage Elliot away from the world. But slowly, like thawing ice, something shifted. Elliot started laughing again. Not forced, not bitter, real laughter, the kind that made his eyes crinkle at the corners. Damien started smiling in return, tentative at first, then with the kind of boyish charm Elliot never imagined him capable of. One evening, as the first hints of spring painted the Illinois sky pink and gold, Damien dragged Elliot out to the countryside. They sat on the hood of his car, legs dangling, silence stretched between them. The air smelled of damp earth and new beginnings. "Do you ever think," Elliot said suddenly, eyes fixed on the horizon, "that maybe this bond isn't a trap? Maybe it's a second chance?" Damien turned to him, studying his profile, the silver hair catching the dying sunlight, the vulnerable curve of his mouth. "I've thought that since the moment I saw you." Elliot's throat tightened. His heart raced in his chest, but this time he didn't fight it. Slowly, hesitantly, he reached out and laced his fingers with Damien's. For once, Damien didn't smirk, didn't tease. He just squeezed back, grounding them both. But happiness, Elliot learned, was not a straight path. The world outside still judged. Other alphas sneered at Damien for tying himself to a fragile omega who looked like he could break with a strong wind. Families whispered. Strangers stared. Even Elliot's co-workers at the diner muttered behind his back, some with pity, some with disgust. Elliot felt it all like knives. One night, after a particularly cruel encounter where an alpha customer called him a useless pretty pet, Elliot locked himself in his bathroom and pressed his forehead against the cold mirror. The old fear crept back, whispering that maybe they were right. Maybe Damien deserved someone stronger, someone who didn't need protecting every moment of the day. The knock on the door came quietly. "Elliot." Damien's voice, low but steady. "Open up." Elliot didn't move. Tears slipped down his cheeks, silent and hot. "I know you're hurting," Damien continued, his tone breaking, raw. "But don't shut me out. If you're angry, yell at me. If you're sad, cry. If you're scared, let me hold you. Just don't do this alone." Something in Elliot cracked open then, the dam breaking. His hand trembled as he unlocked the door. Damien stood there, eyes red-rimmed, as if he had been holding back his own storm. Without hesitation, Damien pulled him into his arms, burying his face in Elliot's hair. And for the first time, Elliot didn't fight. He clung back, whispering against Damien's chest, "Don't let go." "I never will," Damien promised. By summer, their bond was unshakable. They were no longer just Alpha and Omega, no longer just a fate written by biology. They were two men who had chosen each other, again and again, through pain, doubt, and fear. One warm July night, Damien led Elliot into a field just outside the city. Fireflies danced in the tall grass, stars spread wide above them. Elliot looked around, confused, until Damien stopped and turned to face him. His green eyes glowed in the starlight as he held Elliot's hands. "You know I'm not good with words," he said, voice rough. "But I need you to hear this. I don't care about destiny. I don't care about what the world says. You're my beginning and my end, Elliot. I want to spend every damn day proving to you that you're not fragile. You're the strongest person I've ever known." Elliot's breath caught. Tears blurred his vision, but this time they were warm, not heavy. "Damien." Damien reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver band, simple but gleaming. "Stay with me. Not because fate demands it, but because you want to." Elliot's hand trembled as he touched the ring. His heart pounded. Every fear, every doubt, every scar still a part of him. But above it all was the truth, the one he couldn't deny anymore. "I do," he whispered, voice breaking but sure. "I want to." Damien's arms wrapped around him instantly, lifting him off the ground as Elliot laughed through his tears. Fireflies circled them like tiny blessings, and the night air carried the sound of two souls finally at peace. Later, lying together in the grass, Elliot rested his head on Damien's chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. For the first time, it didn't scare him. It soothed him. "You know," Elliot murmured sleepily, "if someone had told me when I woke up in this body that I'd end up here with you, I would have laughed in their face." Damien chuckled softly, running his fingers through Elliot's silver hair. "Guess life has a twisted sense of humor." "Yeah," Elliot whispered, smiling faintly. "But maybe, just maybe, it knew what it was doing." The night wrapped around them, tender and infinite, and as Elliot drifted to sleep in the safety of Damien's arms, he realized he was no longer running, no longer afraid. He was exactly where he was meant to be. Finally, after all the pain and the battles, after being reborn into a world that tried to break him, Elliot had found his place, his home, and it was Damien. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest videos.